6. The suffering of separation from what is pleasant. Such suffering occurs, for example, when we are separated from a dear friend, partner, or relative. We recall the good qualities of those we lost, and we are filled with regret on what we should have said or done, but it's to no avail as we cannot go back in time. Such is our attachment to our loved ones that we can even die or become ill when we are separated from them. However, if we contemplate more deeply on our relations with parents, wives, husbands, children, and friends, we might also come to realize some ugly truths about them. For example, although our parents cared for us and wished only our best, because they themselves had illusions and were not aware of the urgent matter of liberation from birth and death, their actions did us many harms too. For example, by focusing their education exclusively on how to achieve worldly success and fame, or if they advised us on how to make money without taking into consideration any moral standards, they encouraged our greed and caused us to become even more trapped in samsara. As Shakyamuni Buddha said, quote, "Later generations learned from previous ones to act likewise. Fathers, perpetuating their wrong views, passed them on to their children. Since parents and grandparents from the beginning did not do good deeds, were ignorant of the way, committed foolish acts, and were benighted, insensitive, and callous, their descendants are now unable to realize the truth of birth and death and the law of karma. There is no one to tell them about this. Nobody seeks to know the cause of fortune and misfortune, happiness and misery, although these states result from such acts." End quote. Not to mention the cases where parents neglect their children or use them to satisfy their own selfish desires. Indeed, some human parents are no different than monsters who eat their own offspring. Also, there are children who were raised well by their parents with great efforts and sacrifices, sometimes even by engaging in negative actions, but they turn against their mothers and fathers and hurt them in many ways. It is well known that many parents end up not in their own houses, but in old age asylums. The sons or daughters justify this by saying it's in the best interests of the parents, when the truth is that they simply no longer wish to assume their filial responsibilities. By doing this, they treat their parents as things, not living beings, who once cared for them and raised them in their own house, not in orphanages. It is said in the sacred text that one cannot repay his parents' kindness even if he carries them all his life on his shoulders. So imagine what evil karma such unfilial sons and daughters generate for their next rebirth. Instead of being a support for their father and mother, worldly children act as obstacles towards the spiritual and physical health of their parents and make them realize they spent their lives in vain to raise them. How true these words of Jetson Milarepa sound for many parents. Quote, "In the beginning your son is a charming little god. You love him so much that you cannot bear it. In the middle of he ferociously demands his due. You give him everything, but he is never satisfied. He brings home someone else's daughter, pushing his kindly parents out. When his father calls him, he doesn't deign to answer. When his mother calls, he doesn't even hear. In the end, he's like a distant neighbor. You destroy yourself nourishing a swindler like that? How frustrating it is to beget your own enemies. I've cast off this harness that tethers us to samsara. I don't want any of these worldly sons. In the beginning, a daughter is a smiling little goddess, imperiously monopolizing all your best possessions. In the middle, she endlessly asks her due. She openly demands things from her father and steals them from her mother on the sly. Never satisfied with what she's given, she's a source of despair to her kindly parents. In the end, she's a red-faced ogress. At best, she's an asset to someone else. At worst, she'll bring calamity upon you. How frustrating she is, this ravaging monster. I've cast off this incurable sorrow. I don't want a daughter who will lead me to ruin." End quote. Friends too can be deceiving, treating us well when we are prosperous and forgetting us when we pass through difficult times. Also, the love of friends can often transform itself into hate and adversity if big attachments and conflicting interests arise. Quote, "In the beginning, friends meet you joyfully. They smile, and the whole valley rings with 'come in and sit down.' In the middle, they return your hospitality with meat and beer, item for item, exactly one for one. In the end, they cause strife based on hate or attachment. How frustrating they are, those evil friends with all their quarrels. I've given up my dining companions of easy times. I don't want any worldly friends. End quote. 7. The suffering of not getting what one wants. This type of suffering occurs when we put great efforts into achieving a worldly goal, but we have no success. Frustration, disappointment, and anger fill our mind streams and cause us pain. But even when we are successful, what we have just gained will soon prove not to be enough, and so we continue our efforts to achieve more and more, thinking erroneously that one day we will find complete satisfaction and not need anything. However, samsaric activities never end, and we come to neglect the Dharma in exchange for the delusional goals we ourselves, our family, and society assign to us. Parents, children, wives, husbands, the company we work for, and others will always ask more and more from us, and so we will never find any real break in which to take care of what is really important, solving the problem of birth and death. Knowing this, Master Renyo advised, quote, listen to the Buddha Dharma by making time in your secular life. It is wrong to assume that you can listen to the Dharma when you have time. End quote. 8. The suffering associated with the 5 aggregates or skandhas. All the physical and mental elements of a being are classified in 5 types of skandhas, that is, aggregates. 1. Form, a generic name for all kinds of matter and the body. 2. Feeling or sensation. 3. Perception. 4. Mental formations or mental states. 5. Consciousness or mind. For unenlightened beings, all these 5 are causes of delusion and suffering. Our body organs may fall sick and create pain. We may experience hunger, thirst, too much heat or too much cold, etc. Also, our feelings and sensation are the basis for attachment and aversion, which is a cause for various pains. Perceptions are subjective experiences and are the basis for disagreement and controversy, leading to conflict among people. The non-virtuous states of mind include ignorance, desire, anger, pride, envy, deceit, stinginess, laziness, forgetfulness, doubt, and harmful beliefs, but also the drowsiness, agitation, and distraction people may experience during practice. These too are a cause for suffering. Referring to consciousness or mind, in Buddhism we speak about the 8 consciousnesses, which are generated when our senses encounter their objects: consciousness of sight, consciousness of hearing, consciousness of smell, consciousness of taste, consciousness of touch, consciousness of mind, impure mind consciousness, and 8, the alaya storehouse consciousness. The meaning of the first 5 consciousnesses is easy to comprehend, so I will not dwell upon them. The consciousness of mind integrates the perceptions of the 5 senses in concrete images and takes decisions concerning the exterior world. The impure mind consciousness is the source of clinging, and so the origin of the sense of ego as well as of the other illusions which are born from the fact that we take as real something which is merely apparent. This, of course, leads to suffering. The alaya consciousness, or storehouse consciousness, is the place where all the actions and experiences in this life and the previous lives generated by the 7 consciousnesses are stored as karma, being the only consciousness which comes along with every birth. This consciousness influences at the same time the workings of the other 7 consciousnesses. We take this alaya consciousness with us in all our births in the various realms of existence. It contains the seeds of various types of karma, and it is the storehouse of the habitual evil karmic tendencies that we have cultivated for eons. Because of the karmic seeds contained in the alaya consciousness, one may die a premature death, be stricken with unexpected disease or inexplicable misfortune, overcome by strong desires, aversions, and obsessions, can think and do things that one should never even imagine, etc. So strong is the influence of the alaya consciousness. When Shinran is recorded as saying in chapter 13 of Tanisho, quote, a person may not wish to harm anyone and yet end up killing 100 or 1,000 people, end quote. He is in fact referring to the influence of past karma contained in the alaya consciousness. but I've already talked about this at the chapter dedicated to karma, so please return there if you wish. In addition to the 8 sufferings explained above, we should also contemplate the following words of Bodhisattva Vasubandhu. Quote, "It is apparent that humans also have all the sufferings of the miserable realms. Tormented by pain, they're like hell beings. Deprived, they're like those in the Lord of Death's world, the hungry ghosts. Humans also have the sufferings of animals, in that the powerful use force to hurt and oppress the weak. These sufferings are just like a river. Some suffer from poverty. For others, suffering arises from discontent. The suffering of yearning is unbearable. All of them quarrel and can be killed." End quote. Namo Amida Buddha.